Check, check.
Oh! How y'all doing? Welcome. Let's go. Really mean it this time. I don't wanna love nobody but you. I don't wanna love nobody but you. I don't wanna love nobody but you. Sing it, y'all, come on. He saves the day. He will come through. He won't fail. That's not what superheroes do. Sing it with your boy. No way to love. A love like this. It's my heartbeat. Come on, y'all. All I wanna do is make you proud. Sing it again. He saves the day.
We're going to get started here in just 1 second.
That's what. Sing it again, y'all. Break it down, sing it. Make it bounce, y'all. I don't wanna love nobody but you. I don't wanna love nobody but you. I don't wanna love nobody but you. Sing it, sing it, sing it, sing it. I don't wanna love nobody but you. I don't wanna love nobody but you. I don't wanna love nobody but you. Show them the move, show them the move. I don't wanna love nobody but you. I don't wanna love nobody but you. I don't wanna love nobody but you.
All right, hope y'all are doing great. It is Wednesday. We're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to UX class. Hope y'all are doing great. Today we're going to be talking about gestures. So it's another kind of topic in UX that you need to be familiar with. It's not like the core principles of UX, but it is something that is important if you're going to be building professional user experiences out there. And it's something that's it's important now, but it's going to become increasingly important over the years as y'all are out in the field. It's something that's important now, but it's going to be more important and more important and more important as our UXs get more sophisticated. So it's something you're going to want to know about. We're going to talk about it today. First off, though, here's a few announcements. As y'all know, videos, your final deliverable is due next Thursday. Now, somebody pointed out that I had the wrong due date on those. Those are due next Thursday night. That is basically your final deliverable. Of course, I'm going to ask for commits, just a link to your commits at some point, but this is your final real deliverable. You don't have to do anything for the commits other than what you've already been doing this semester. So what we're going to be doing for that, the video deliverable that's due next Thursday, I want to have a 60-second demo video of your app. Walk me through it, hit the highlights, show me that it can be used all the way. The more functionality you can show in those 60 seconds, the better. But again, just a 60-second demo in MP4 format. Important to do MP4 format so I don't have to convert all these things for the watch parties. Then we're also going to have the 60-second reflection on one of the good choices that you made when designing your app. So 60 seconds, demo just a small part of your app that you think really works well, and then explain why that works well. And then similarly, 60-second bad video, meaning like something that doesn't work quite right in your app, and not necessarily something that is just broken because you haven't implemented, but more like something that's wrong with the user experience. So 60 seconds demoing that and then talking about how you would maybe do that differently next time. Now, once all these videos are in, we're going to be doing video watch parties, and that will start not this Friday, but the Friday after. And those will be graded activities every day for the watch party. So you're going to need to attend those. As I said before, the reason that it's important to attend those is that's like getting free experience. The best way to become better as a user designer or user experience designer is to make a ton of apps and learn from your mistakes. Because in this class you can, and in the context of college, you can kind of only make one app per semester. You know, we have limited time. You're going to use watching other people's mistakes and successes, and you're going to use that as a way to generate experience for yourself without having coded the thing yourself. I see Max is asking, are we doing these videos? These submissions are all one per group. So demo, good and bad, you're doing one of these per group. So you don't have to do these individually. These are one per group. Now, I've had over the course of the semester, and in general, you know, you always have a few requests for extra credit, especially for those of you that might have missed, you know, a day or two of the studio days or the any graded in-class activity. And so we are going to have an opportunity for extra credit coming up. And it's kind of a fun one, actually. So check it out. Here is the opportunity for extra credit. Let me copy this right here so you can... I'm putting this in the chat so you can find this information. In fact, let me go ahead and copy this into Slack too, real quick, and then I'll tell you all about it. All right, so this extra credit that I'm talking about right here is you are gonna, before I get to that, Paul is asking, are any of the studio days dropped? Studio days, remember the 2 lowest grades of studio days are dropped. 2 lowest are dropped. Remember though, the watch parties will all be essentially studio days or graded in class activities. So there's going to be at least, I think it's about 3 more class activities too. So yeah, the 2 lowest studio days are dropped, in class activities are dropped. Now for extra credit, for those of you that are so inclined, and even if you're doing pretty well, this is a pretty fun bit of extra credit, so you may consider just ensuring, even if you bomb that final exam, that you will, you know, do well in the class. Here's what you're going to do. Set up a meeting with Philippe. He's one of my graduate students, and so just email him and try and set up a time that you can meet with him over the next week or two. You are going to... With him, you're going to have a chance to program an industrial robot. I'll show you a video of the robot in just a second. That takes between 30 and 60 minutes, depending on, you know, how long it takes to teach you to do it and things like that. But, you know, just plan for an hour. It's kind of fun anyway. And it's a, you know, a pretty fun way to get extra credit. And then once you do that, Philippe will let me know and I'll give you some extra credit. Just to give you some insight into what this would look like, here is a video of the robot you would be using. Check it out. All right, so hopefully you kind of got an idea of what's going on there. Let me get this out of that mode. All right, so any questions about how this extra credit will work? Any more questions about how this extra credit will work? Any questions on how this will work? Sorry about that. All right, looks like no questions. I'm going to go ahead and move on. Sorry about that. Had to answer. All right, cool. I'm going to go yes, so this is in person. Jackson's asking, is this in person? This would be in person. You would need to come in person. Um, so the guy that is running, Philippe, the experiment has already been vaccinated several weeks ago. So he's been vaccinated. And if you have any concerns about that, then you can talk to me and we can maybe work something out. But this would be in person, and it is really fun. I mean, you get to mess with a industrial robot. This robot's worth like, let's say $70,000, something like that. So $70,000, $70,000. So it's not something you're gonna get to play with like at your friend's house or something. This is something that like you only get to play with at a university. And Paul is asking, can we do extra? So we can do extra credit in person, but not class. I think you're saying like, can we do extra credit virtually? And if you have some constraint that you are not comfortable coming to, the lab and doing this, we can talk about other options. So, just get in contact with me on Slack and we can talk about those. All right. So today we are talking about gestures. And what is a gesture? It is just a physical movement that a digital system can sense and respond to without the aid of a traditional pointing device such as a mouse. Examples include a wave, a head nod, a touch, a toe tap, if you have like a toe tap, a facial expression, etc. So, for gestures, here is the classic example. You guys and gals might be too young to know what this is, but check it out. Here is the original gesture device. Okay.
Honey, turn off the light.
Has this ever happened to you? Presenting the Clapper. Lets your appliances turn on and off just by clapping. Clap on the music. It's easy. Just plug the Clapper into any household outlet, then plug in your lamp, TV, or stereo.
Clap on, clap off.
For places hard to reach, the Clapper makes it easy. Plus, the Clapper comes with an extra feature to make your home more secure. Turn to the Away function, and your lights turn on at the first sound it hears. Minutes later, they turn off. And the Clapper resets to help protect your home. Leave your appliances plugged into the Clapper, and your lights will go on, turning away unwanted guests.
Clap on, clap off. The Clapper.
All right, so I'm curious, how many of y'all have ever heard of the Clapper? Is that something that your generation knows about or not? How many of y'all have ever heard about the Clapper? Maybe hit the heart button in Menti or just let me know in the chat. Have you ever heard about the Clapper? I'm genuinely curious. Okay, so y'all have heard of it probably because it's funny. And I must say it is actually kind of useful. We used to use it on our Christmas tree because it is kind of useful. Can you imagine any problem with this device, the clapper. So we used to use it for a Christmas tree, and because the plug is way back there and you can't get to it real easy. Can you imagine what could possibly go wrong with the clapper? Let me know in the chat if you have any guesses. Yep, picking up sounds that picking up sounds that aren't claps. So there could be some other things that sound like claps. Like, I have kids and they shoot little Nerf guns and stuff. Sometimes those sound like claps. There are other things that sound like claps, and kids make a lot of those. Sometimes they don't pick up the claps, but I would say if you clap loud, they are actually pretty good at picking up claps. I do highly recommend the clapper. It is fun device, and the original gesture device. Okay, so that's not the only one though. There are lots of devices with gestures. For instance, the clapper is my number one favorite example, but there are bathrooms like here in the engineering research building, which is a new building for y'all engineering students at VCU, which you should really check out anytime you get a chance to, because it is really nice. Y'all are going to be happy when we get back on campus. It is a really nice place to hang out and a really great place to do research and hang out between classes. So the bathrooms here have lots of gesture-based technology. The toilets, detect that you're there, and then they detect that you're gone. I guess that's not really a gesture, but when you want to get water, you have to like wave your hand under the water to get the water started, and then you have to wave your hand under the soap to get the soap started, and even the same for the dryer. So those are basically gestures. There's actually doors that are non-touch doors here in the ERB that you put your key card on it just to let it know who you are, and then you actually wave your hand over it and in a certain way, and then it opens the door for you. Office lights have some detection of motion. Those are kind of like gestures. MS Connect is a great example of gestures. It detects where your hands are and where your body is. So I want to know from y'all's point of view, what apps do you use that have gestures, and what are they? I'm curious, what is your experience with gestures? Just, from y'all's generation, how much do you use them? How much are you aware that you use them? I bet you do use them. And kind of what are they? So get logged in there to Menti 96185079. We got about 25 people in the stream right now. Yeah, that's and so he's bringing up a great point. What apps that his entire Samsung phone is, his or her entire Samsung phone is being used through gestures. Yes, phones use a lot. Palm swipe the screen to take screenshot. That's pretty interesting. I didn't know that was one. That's cool. Ooh, chopping motion with phone. Is that Android? That's interesting. I don't know if that's turned on for mine, but that is really cool if that works. I'd really like to know more about that chopping motion with the phone. If you can tell me more about that in the chat or whatever. Making certain faces activate filters. That's a great one in Snapchat. One that I definitely don't know about. Pick up phone to wake screen. Yep, that's a good one. Pinch to zoom. Yep. Lots of these on maps. There's this Harry Potter app where you use your phone as a wand. That's awesome. Yep, that's definitely one. Laptop touchpad. I don't usually use the touchpad. I'm not a monster. I agree. Touchpads are lame. The flashlight chop apparently is a Samsung thing. Unfortunately, I have a Google phone, so can't do that. Somebody was saying VR. Yeah, that's a great example. They have lots of gestures. Wii games have lots of gestures. Yep. All right, so y'all are basically familiar with gestures and you've used them. Turn phone face down to ignore phone calls. That's really cool. I didn't know that was a gesture. Yeah. Excellent. So, excellent examples. Now, some of the technology that we've talked about, like the clapper and faucets and building things in buildings and Connect and I mean, these are all kind of old technologies. And I think it's easy to think of gestures as kind of not going to happen as much in the future kind of technology, because they've been around for a long time, at least in some form. But I want to bring up one point. Check out this video for a little inspiration.
I show 8 Howard marks in the district, sorting by race and age.
Under license registration. See if I can capture an address here.
I was thinking maybe I'd play hooky, stay home today.
Working too much. Can you grab that?
It's unclear.
I got 6 licenses. Where do you want them?
Over here, please.
Very slow.
Blind I am without them.
Got them in the Foxhole, 4421 Gainsborough.
Send a DCPD blue and white. Set up a perimeter and tell them we're en route.
Investigator from the feds here.
Yeah, I don't need some twink from the Fed poking around right now.
John, I wrote it down on your calendar. I left you a message at your house.
Check in with the papers they had it forwarded. See if the neighbors knew where they went. Check all relations.
Checking neighbors and relations?
But John,
Fletch, just get them some coffee. Tell them some stories how I save your ass every day and you can't live without me.
I got coffee, thank you. Danny Whitmer, twink from the Fed. Whoops, got him.
Sorry, Danny, I'm gonna have to give you the full tour some other time.
The marks was moved a couple of weeks ago. Nobody knows where. Still searching for family and employer.
Time horizon 12 minutes.
all right, what he's doing now we call scrubbing the image.
All right, so I don't want to cause copyright stuff to go ahead and stop me, but the point there is that this is a very futuristic user interface, and this is actually something that is going to affect your generation gestures more than it did, my generation of developers. This is something that is really starting to pick up steam here now in terms of being enabled on phones, and it is something that's going to just continue to get to be more popular. For instance, check it out. Just going to show you this. For instance, this is a monitor that we're about to purchase for our research, and it's just a monitor that's regularly available. I think you can imagine that having a nice touchscreen monitor on your laptop or computer will become the norm in the near future, and it will change the way that you interact with computers. So, all this to say that gestures are important now, but as you can see from kind of the Minority Report example, from the example of how cheap and how easy to use this thing is at this point, that within years, let's say within 5 years, I would imagine that touchscreen laptops are going to be kind of the norm, and how you interact with computers is going to change a lot because gestures will just become more and more common. So, even though the clapper is ancient, and so maybe you think gestures are kind of over, actually the opposite is true. Gestures are really just picking up steam. This is something that's going to be very important for user experience designers in your generation. So I would argue they have increasing importance. It's something y'all are really going to have to pay attention to. What are some guidelines for gestures? You want the behavior to be natural. For instance, I've never used these dating apps because I've been married the whole time that they've existed. But like the swipe left, swipe right, the swiping, that seems like really natural. Or like TikTok, I do use that. Swiping up, it's really natural. Like I don't want to see that next one. It's really natural to just kind of flick away the thing that you don't want to see to kind of sort. It's reminds me a lot of the Minority Report, right? Like he's just kind of sorting some things. You want to also be thinking about ergonomics as you do these gestures, because just like regular interactions, they can cause problems if they're making you do really weird positions very often, or if you're having to do them over and over again, or if you have to kind of keep your finger in the same place. I want to bring up the example, the ergonomic static. Has anybody in class ever played the game Roblox? Have y'all ever played the game Roblox, or are you too old for that? I don't know. If you've ever played the game Roblox, has anybody ever played it on your computer? Yeah, y'all are probably a little old for Roblox, but maybe you played it once or twice just to see what it's all about, or you've thought about designing something in there. The interesting thing about Roblox is if you play it on a tablet, it's really natural to play and to control, yeah, my little sister plays it. I mean, my daughter plays it on iPad a lot too. She loves it. If you play it on a computer, they make you use your mouse to control it, and you have to constantly hold down the right mouse button to look around and to move around successfully. And so what I want to bring up though is it's this ergonomic of holding down the button the whole time that you play, and it's really uncomfortable. Like you wouldn't think that just holding the button down, it's not very hard to hold down, but if you have to like hold it down the whole time you play, it becomes really uncomfortable. And what I want to say is if you have a gesture that is really static, like you have to hold something all the time, it really gets to be annoying. Yeah, Roblox is kind of interesting because of it's kind of like somewhere between Minecraft and Flash. I don't know, it's interesting framework. So of course we have the usual human anatomy considerations. I'm not going to go too much into these, but you just want to, be aware of where people can swipe and where they can't swipe, how big people's hands are, how big the space between two fingers can be. For instance, you see the 8 to 10 millimeter space between, what is that? The pointer finger and the middle finger. If you're going to make somebody do a split on their finger, and you're going to measure somehow the distance between their finger, know that they probably could only get 8 to 10 millimeters between those two fingers in that way. So you don't want to require some kind of weird motion that causes them to really get a big split between those two fingers. So just be aware of the general anatomy. What other considerations do you think related to human anatomy or human fashion do you think might affect gestures? I'm going to give you all some examples in the next slide, but I want to see, can you guess what things might you need to consider when you are making gestures in terms of like physical constraints? Take a guess as to what could go wrong with gestures based on human anatomy or human fashion, or just really anything you can think of that's kind of not the obvious. Take some guesses. What are some other considerations that could make gestures hard to do? Disabilities would be good too, would be ones too. Gloves blocking fingers, excellent. That is an excellent example. I used to live in Vancouver, and I'd have to wait at the bus stop. Vancouver is really rainy. And I had a special pair of gloves that would allow my finger to go through to my touch screen so that I could like change the song or whatever I was listening to while I was waiting for the bus. If you have to shake with too much force, you might have a problem. Mask blocking face is a great one. If you're trying to do like face sign in, I assume they have that with phones. They definitely have that with computers. And your mask is on your face, that's definitely a problem. Left and right-handedness can be a problem. You don't want to make everything for the right-handed people, but without the ability to switch, because that's super annoying to left-handed people. And there's a fair amount of people that are left-handed. Any other ideas? All right, well, check it out. Here are some other ones. Fingernails. Probably something that most of you didn't think of, but if you have very long fake fingernails, that can cause you some difficulties when doing certain gestures. Of course, finger oil and fingerprints are an issue. If you are eating, then it could be hard to use the phone because you get stuff all over your phone, or it could just make a mess, phone or touchscreen. For instance, for McDonald's, they have, touchscreen ordering kiosk. And it kind of makes sense because they ask you to do that before you eat. You order before you eat. But if there was a place where you, like, let's say you were ordering from a sit-down restaurant at your table and you wanted to order stuff like in the middle of the meal, having a touchscreen there might not be, especially with gestures, might not be great because you're in the middle of eating, right? And so you might get oil all over that thing, and that might just be kind of gross. The handedness thing, y'all spotted. Accessibility issues in terms of whether you can move, whether you're having to use some alternative things. That can be an issue. Wrist support and gloves. Y'all got quite a few of these, but it's good. Now, I want you to think about the vast different types of apps that are out there. What type of apps do you think gestures are best for? And you can answer more than one, I believe, in this, but tell me, one Minty, what type of apps? Where should you consider gestures? Wake up. There you go. Getting in some votes. Thank you. All right, and these are actually really good results. I feel like y'all have a good handle on this. I think phones right now are the #1 place you should consider using gestures. I don't know why y'all are disrespecting the phablets. Old people need phones too. But maybe you're right in that, older people are less likely to use gestures. I don't know. Touchscreen monitors is going to be an area that we're going to see more and more. Gestures are going to be there. VR, we're going to see more and more. You have to have gestures in there because your hands are your controllers in some sense. Tablets, of course, and desktop apps. I understand that they're not as popular for gestures, but you can actually have them on there, and there are plugins that you can get for Windows, and a lot of desktop apps actually do support gestures. Just so you know, but I agree with y'all in that the touch enabled and the VR enabled kind of things are probably more relevant for gestures. However, some people do use them for desktop apps, although less popular. Good answers. Now, we're going to take a quick look at what are some of the most common gestures right here. Let's just start at the top just to give you a basic idea. Hey, these are the most common, straightforward gestures. So tap, double tap, drag, and then different from the drag, flick, pinch and spread, press, which is hold down, you know, for an extended period of time. Press and tap. So you are like holding down and tapping at the same time. I don't like that one personally, but that is one. Press and drag, where you're like holding down, let's say with your thumb, and then dragging. That's like kind of getting into the more advanced ones. Rotate. And those are the ones I wanted to go over. Those are kind of like your core gestures that probably should be considered or maybe even supported in your app. So just this resource, let me put the link to that, gives you a good overview of some core gestures that you should be aware of. Now, how many people have ever used gestures on Windows 10? Maybe hit the heart here in Minty if you have. I'm curious. Have you ever used gestures on Windows 10? Looks like at least 1 or 2 people have, but maybe not a ton of us. If you use the trackpad a lot, which maybe y'all do more than me, I'm always at a desk, but maybe y'all with an external keyboard, but maybe y'all actually use the trackpad. Some trackpad action is really helpful, like scrolling with 2 fingers. That's kind of nice. Zooming in, zooming out. Show more commands. If you touch the what do you call it? The trackpad with 2 fingers, like tap it. It you know, does the context menu. If you have a Surface, Tyler brings up a great point. If you have the Surface, like Microsoft Surface Pro, it can be very useful to use these gestures. Buford is saying he actually uses a lot of touchpad gestures. If you're used, like some people really like the trackpad, or the touchpad, I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm calling it the trackpad, the touchpad. And it works for some people really well. And I think there are people that do like it because they are starting to become power users of some of these gestures, right? Because some of these, I mean, if you're using the trackpad and you're trying to figure out how to right click without using this 2-finger trick, it starts to get kind of clunky. But as soon as you know the 2-finger trick, it's actually can become a lot better. So there's a lot of touchpad gestures for Windows 10. And similarly, there's a lot for Apple too. Here is some guidelines from Apple. Again, I'm just putting these links in the chat for your perusal, in case you want to look into how they recommend using gestures. Now, just to go over the highlights of their guidelines, just like you know, Android has similar guidelines for gestures. They want you to use standard ones, like some of those core ones are probably the ones that you're going to want to be implementing. They do not want you to hijack standard ones, though. Like, if there is one that operates at the system level, like swiping left to go back to the last app, if you swipe back like that and it doesn't go back, that will make users upset. So you don't want to hijack standard gestures. And this can be a subtle point because sometimes you're going to want to, like, you know, like with email, you're going to want to swipe left to delete email. I don't know if you've ever done that, like in Gmail. And there's a difference between swiping on an item on the screen, kind of more gently, and just swiping back the gesture at the system level. So you just got to be careful not to hijack system level gestures because that's bad. And that's what I'm going at here. An important thing with gestures is not everybody's on board with them. So you want to use gestures to supplement user experience, not to replace the user experience. So you want to enable people that are into gestures to use them, but you don't want to make it impossible for the non-gesture people. You know, you don't want to confuse them. So as it is right now, gestures are more of an add-on, or, you know, you expect to see them in kind of high-end apps, but I think in the future, they'll just become more and more the default way we interact with apps. One thing I wanted to show you, and again, I'm going to put this in the chat here. lots of resources today. I want to talk a little bit about this article, which is how gestures are shaping the future. For instance, I wanted to give you this example. This example is one of the best ways to use gestures that I've seen with. If you want to delete something, like an email, like I was just talking about, swiping it to the side and then having an undo button is a really nice way so that you don't have to have, lots of delete buttons and stuff. So it can lead to less cluttered UI, and that's why I think gestures might become more and more prevalent, because they help us really utilize that screen real estate to show information, not to show like a delete button, which you kind of know you can always delete stuff. So that's one of my favorite uses of gestures, is to do things like delete, because it eliminates a button and you can still always undo it right there. So this is going over some other uses of gestures. For instance, as I mentioned, in VR, we're going to have to deal with gestures because your hands are the controllers. And this goes over different types of touch mechanics, like tapping to select something, like double tapping to like, dragging, long pressing, pinch open, flinging, and tapping or with two fingers, etc., etc. So this will just give you some actual examples of touch mechanics that you might want to check out when you're thinking about how to do this in your own app. Now, speaking of, what gestures do you think that you could add in your app? What gestures do you think you could add in your app? We all have this putt-putt golf app that we've been working on all semester. How could you incorporate gestures into that app? What action would you have them do? Maybe what gesture would you use? Swipe to change holds or players. That's an excellent idea. Swipe to change holds or players. You got to be careful though about hijacking, the overall swipe back action, and it's kind of a judgment call. I would probably make a swipe only on certain areas change the hold, whereas kind of a generic swipe would still do the system-wide action. You could use shaking to play victory sounds for sure. Back foot to reduce your strokes. Anybody got any other ideas on how to use gestures in your apps? All right, well, there's other ones, of course, like deleting. If you want to delete a game, I could imagine that. Deleting is a good action to have in a gesture. Changing between players or holes, that's a great way to do it. Yeah, maybe even you could have gestures for putting in the score. Like maybe you could actually put in the score, like write the score, and it would just appear in the correct place, like if you were on a user. So, there's different creative ways that you could have gestures. All right, so we've talked a lot about gestures today. We're going to go ahead, get logged into Menti, and we are going to have a quick gesture quiz. We're going to go ahead and get started. Remember, answer fast to get more points, etc. This is just a little quiz to see what you've learned about gestures. This is not graded. Answer fast to get more points. Tap. What is the answer to tap? It drags an item. It moves an item. It activates a control or selects an item. It scrolls. How do you use the tap gesture? Let me know what you think. We're starting off easy, but we'll get a little harder here. Exactly. Y'all are on point today. Way to go. Let's see who got it fastest. Looks like Wolfmeister is our fastest so far. Question 2 of 5. Double tap. What does it do? It copies the selected text. It undoes things. It zooms in and centers content. Or does it select things? How do you use that double tap? Usually. How do you use that double tap usually? Everybody got their answers in, and in fact, it zooms in and centers content. Whenever you're making gestures, you're gonna wanna kind of look up the standard usage of that gesture to make sure that however you're using it is like kind of consistent with how others are using it. Cole's taking the lead. Next up, question 3 of 5. Pinch. How is pinch used in gestures? What does it do? What does it do? Does it zoom in and out? Does it copy selected text? Does it undo things? Or does it select things? Pinch. Does it zoom in or out? Does it copy selected text? Does it do undo or redo things? Or does it select things? What do you think? Exactly. Way to go. That was an easy one. But it's important that you know what these gestures do by default. And Cole's still in the lead here. Question 4 of 5. 3-finger pinch. This is one that I had to look up. 3-finger pinch. Does it zoom in or out? Copy selected text? Undo, redo? Copy paste? Or rotate? What does the 3-finger pinch do? It's not one that I use personally, but it is a relatively standard one. It copy paste. 3-finger pinch is used, at least I think in the Windows setting, for copy paste. That was a tough one. I told you we're gonna get tough here. Again, when you're making gestures, you're gonna want to look up how are these being used in current systems and kind of, adjust to that. All right. Last question. Let's see who's gonna be our champion for today. Answer fast to get more points. Shake. What does the shake do? Shake, does it zoom in or zoom out? Does it copy selected text? Does it undo or redo? Does it copy and paste? Or does it rotate? How would you use the shake? We learned that the chop does the flashlight for certain phones. How would you use the shake? Or how is shake commonly used, really, is the better way to put this. And that is right. Undo or redo. Way to go. Y'all are on top of it. Who got it the fastest? It's gonna be hard to catch Elsa. All right. Elsa's our winner, followed by Cole, Jackson, Eggplant, Volcano, Gargura, Tyler, something Gump, Bonk, and Wolfmeister. Way to go. If y'all have any questions, I'm going to stick around for a minute to answer them, but that is the lecture for today. Hope y'all have a great day, and I will see y'all on Friday. Take it easy. That's it for today. If you have questions, feel free to ask them either in Menti or in the chat. Otherwise, I will see y'all on Friday.
Man, Happy New Year, happy good year, happy to a better year. My name is Kirk Franklin, and I'm so humble and honored to be here on Tiny Desk with you. And I'm so grateful that you joined me and these incredible singers and musicians. Please help me show some love to this incredible team. Tia, Melody, Dion, Mike, Ebony, Dee Dee, Terry, Matt, Grammy Award winner Sean Martin. We're so glad to be here with you, celebrating our people, all God's people. Man, I'm just so grateful that I'm standing on some great shoulders. All the incredible people from Thomas.
All right, one question that I'm seeing is, what is the format of the final? Hasn't been totally decided yet, but I am definitely leaning towards a design activity. So I'm thinking of, similar to the midterm, a design activity that you can complete in the final time period. So it is probably going to be very similar to the midterm. All right, any other questions, or I'm about to go otherwise?
Sing this with us, y'all. Old school. Come on. Come on, y'all. No fame.
All right, I hope you all have a great day. I will see y'all on Friday. Take it easy.
Ting. You remember this? You remember this?